Hello everyone. Today I'm going to share some of my personal insights on how global teams can improve their BP strategies. I'm going to walk you through my thought process and hopefully it'll give you some helpful ideas or inspiration along the way. Let me start with a question. What's considered a good BP? And what's a bad one? I'm sure many players and coaches can feel it in the moment, whether their lineup is solid or not. But if you ask them to explain it clearly, they often can't. They'll just say, the lineup's messed up, or that pick doesn't fit. As a audience, we might say, one team's BP got totally outclassed, but from the team's perspective, that lineup could actually be the perfect fit for their playstyle at that moment. So, what really defines a good or bad BP? It's definitely something worth thinking about. Here's how I see it. A good BP should first and foremost highlight the strengths of all 5 players, while also be best for the current patch and the game pace. On top of that, it needs to align with your team's playstyle. If it also happens to counter the opponent's core strategy, even better. Of course, you can't always tick every box in a single BP, but covering most of these aspects already makes it a strong one in my book. So, what about a bad BP? Well, if you ignore your players' hero pools, try to force a lineup that doesn't suit your playstyle, or go against the current meta, or worse, if it gets countered on your main win conditions, then yeah, your BP probably isn't up to par. When it comes to building a solid BP, there are 4 key things to consider. Your players' hero pools, the current patch's OP picks, your team's overall playstyle, and the opponent's BP strategies. These elements, combined with a coach's own approach or philosophy, are what really shape your draft decisions. Let's start with hero pools. Top-tier teams from the KPL and overseas HoK leagues often have players with very unique hero preferences, and when a player has a signature pick, it can heavily influence how the entire lineup is built. For example, the jungler of Korea's Nong Shim, Haku is known for his rare but deadly Heino pick. You don't see this hero often in pro play, but in his hands, it's a different story. In S3 Finals Game 1, Haku locked in Heino as the 4th pick, and the whole lineup was built around it. They picked Sun Ce for the side lane and Mai Shiranui mid, both picks that help secure lane priority. Heino is a hero who needs recourses to farm and scale in early game. By strengthening the top and mid lanes, they gave Heino enough recourses to reach his power spike. Once he get his core items and mid-game levels, he became an absolute monster, often able to hold off 3 or even 4 opponents in jungle skirmishes. The lineup achieved its purpose, which enabled Heino as a core threat. The team turned his power spike into map-wide pressure, transforming individual strength into a team-wide advantage. Another example is KPL team Foshan DRG. Their jungler 1-1 is known for his unique Neja pick, and was the first to try it after the hero rework. In Game 3 against LGD.NBW, 1-1 locked Neja, and the team backed him with strong picks like Byron for side lane and Sakir as support, providing the space Neja needed to scale. Since LGD had a strong early game lineup with Dun and Mai Shiranui, if DRG didn't support Neja properly, he could have been shut down early. This shows that when a player has a unique comfort pick, optimizing your lineup around it can be crucial for success. Now let's look at the second dimension. Patch OP heroes. In today's data-driven environment, it's easy to see which heroes are OP and which are bottom tier. Pro teams know this well. In the HoK, heroes like Mai Shiranui, Aogran, Diadia, Arli, Dolia, and Lung are commonly seen. In the KPL, strong combos like Da Qiao and Yuandan are often picked or banned due to their high impact. Let's break this down with some specific cases. For example, in the S3 Invitational semi-finals, Nongshim went up against Blacklist. Blacklist picked up a Diadia and Arli combo right after Nongshim locked in Dun. In response, Blacklist immediately locked in these strong heroes and ended up winning that game. That's because when strong heroes are combined effectively, their synergy can result in a 1+1, 2 effect. This strategy is also quite common in the KPL. For instance, in Chengdu All Gamers versus Chongqing Wolves Game 2, the Wolves used their first 2 bans specifically targeting Diadia. With AG already holding a 2-0 advantage, they were determined not to let the Wolves complete their preferred lineup. So instead of letting them complete it, AG broke it apart by picking Arlie and Yuanden. In high-level matchups between top teams, this is a new strategic idea. Instead of banning, disrupt the enemy's lineup by drafting their key pieces. This approach is known as picking instead of banning. When facing a system lineup, we can adopt various counter strategies. Once we secure a strong lineup, the result often delivers a synergy where 1+1 becomes greater than 2, maximizing the overall team's potential. Now let's move on to the third dimension of BP considerations, team playstyle. Let's take Chengdu All Gamers as an example. As one of the strongest teams in the current KPL, AG's playstyle has long been studied and emulated by others. AG is known for adjusting their core depending on the BP. It might shift from side lane to mid or from side lane to jungle, but Yinwo is always the true core. So AG's lineups are, more often than not, built around Yinwo. OAG's lineups are, more often than not, built around Yinwo. In this game, Yinwo first picked Lady Sun, and the team followed up by picking Ming, a support who maximizes Lady Sun's lane pressure and accelerates her farm. They also picked Hai Yue to provide a better environment for her in team fights. This match also gave us a textbook example of a classic tactical approach. When a team's core player locks in their signature hero, the rest of the draft often revolves around supporting that pick and filling in the necessary functional roles. I've included 2 graphics here that illustrate this perfectly. They show AG's gold distribution during the early and mid-game. At the 5min30 mark, AG's marksman and jungler were both trailing behind to the Wolves. But by 10min, Yinwo had overtaken the Wolves players Daozai and Xiaopeng through focused lane control and resource allocation, undefined. Now, let's move into the 4th dimension of BP strategy, opponent's BP strategy. Let me start with a classic example. In the 2024 spring season, between Wolves and AG, AG built a lineup featuring Alain, Aogran, Mai, Lung, and Dolia. The Wolves mirrored AG's jungle, mid, and support picks, but choose Ma Chao and Ho Yi as their solo lanes. Many people think this BP is genius because Ma Chao counters Alain in lane and also performs well against Lung in team fights. Ho Yi also has an advantage in the way against Lung. In the end, the Wolves won this peak matchup, showing the power of counter BP. This is the essence of counter BP. When you know your opponent's likely picks or signature lineups, you can prepare ahead of time and BP in a way that directly limits their impact. Another great example is the grand finals between E-Star and EDGM. Coach Hualu directly targeted EDGM's core player, Silva, who had a 90% win rate on Lung at the time. From the red side, E-Star used their first ban to remove Lung and restrict Silva's hero pool. When you want to counter a team's key player in the BP, the best time is the first 2 bans, directly limiting their go-to heroes. If the team relies heavily on that hero or lineup to win games, this early targeting can disrupt their entire strategy, making it harder for them to secure comfort picks, execute their game plan, or maintain their preferred structure. To summarize the 4 core BP dimensions, start by considering player hero pools, identify your team's core players and playstyle, adapt to OP lineup, and incorporate counter strategies through targeted bans and picks. On top of that, The coach's BP philosophy also plays a big role. For example, some coaches prefer BP well-rounded lineup that highlight each player's strengths, while others exploit opponents' tendencies to dismantle their setups. However, in HoK's global Ban&Pick format, we face a significant challenge. Your available hero pool is limited. With a small number of OP or highly functional heroes, and individual hero pools often narrow, this limitation requires careful strategic consideration. Under these constraints, two extreme approaches often emerge. Two common strategies emerge: all-in BP and mismatch. Personally, I find the all-in BP strategy risky and often inadvisable. It involves committing all your strongest picks into a single game, which can disrupt team synergy. Even if you secure multiple OP heroes, the lineup can fall short if the picks don't synergize well. For example, you might pick 4 or 5 top-tier heroes in one game, but their playstyles or roles don't match. Maybe 2 are designed for river fights and skirmishes, while the others excel at jungle invasion or lane pressure. This usually fails to perform as intended. And if the opponent uses mismatch, purposely sacrificing one game to bait out your best picks, they can still come out ahead, even in a loss. If they win, it's a big win. If they lose, they've still forced you to waste your key heroes. But if you lose your all-in game, that's a disaster. Not only have you lost the point, but you've also depleted your strongest options for the rest of the series. So, is deliberately playing the mismatch the better choice? It can be if executed with purpose. By holding back your top-tier heroes, you can gain a BP advantage in later games. Some lineups are designed to counter very specific setups. If you can bait your opponent into using their main lineup, you can counter it later with save picks. For example, your Liang or Princess Frost works well against Diadia. If you can force them to use Diadia early with other heroes, your key mages are free to counter their other lineups later. However, this approach comes with its own risks. In a BO5, if you drop a game early just to bait picks, it can be tough to climb back. Mismatch works better in longer formats like BO7 or BO9, where there's more chance to bounce back. In global BP, the more reliable way is to stay balanced, which prepare 2 to 3 practiced lineup styles based on your players' strengths and building those into your BP planning. Another big part of all-in BP is building your lineup systematically. Coaches should know their players' hero pools well enough to plan some reliable teamfight systems around them. These lineups should be practiced to the point where everyone's on the same page. Never pick untrained lineups in a tournament, no matter how strong they look on paper. Competitive play demands hero mastery and synergy. If a player doesn't even understand how a hero works, how can they possibly perform with it? Beyond core lineups, you should also account for signature picks, unique picks that your players play exceptionally well. Maybe it's Neja, Heino, or something else. Once you've got your foundational lineups and signature heroes nailed down, you can start building into counter lineup strategies. For example, Liang, plus Princess Frost, works great against Diadia lineups. Zhang Fei plus Dong Huang give you strong anti-dive and anti-control options to shut down aggressive lineups. This flow of counter planning is critical. You must need to know exactly what your lineup is good against and what it struggles into. That's how you stay a step ahead in all-in BP. Use your bans smart to target those weaknesses. Ban the key components of enemy lineups or use the picking instead of banning strategies by selecting those heroes the opponent wants. Just deny what they're trying to build. Work closely with your analysts to gather scrim data and intel on what the enemy team is practicing. That way, your bans and picks can strike at their comfort zones. Signature picks also serve as point scorers in the later phases of BP. heroes players can rely on even outside of team systems. Here is a quick test. Which is not a reasonable BP strategy? A. Considering players' hero pool. B. Patch OP hero. C. Counter opponent's core player. D. All in a BO7 game. The answer is D. The next point is extremely important and applies to our daily work: improving the quality of BP. BP in training matches should always serve the purpose of actual match. You can test some strategies, but ultimately everything needs to return to the demands of competitive play. BP should be a way to understand your players and select the most suitable ones, especially if you're a new coach coming in trying to level up the team quickly. Then your BP must be high quality. That means every step should be intentional. Use the process to evaluate the team's proficiency with lineups, synergy with different hero combos, and overall readiness at each development stage. It's about using BP as a mirror to reflect your team's real strengths and weaknesses. Then, identify which positions on the team need reinforcement, or which players need more communication and development. Once you've identified these, give them targeted tasks to improve. And when it comes to transfers, it's crucial to recruit the right players. Don't just go for the most expensive options. Don't force players to practice heroes which don't fit their playstyles. Instead, focus on helping them improve their personal understanding of the game. This is the progress that high-quality BP in training can deliver. Another common challenge that many coaches often encounter is expanding players' hero pools. This is especially relevant for overseas players who might not have been playing the game for very long, so their hero pools are often quite limited. Some players might be extremely good at a few heroes, but refuse to play tank junglers. Others may only know how to play tanks, but can't perform on carry junglers because of skill limitations. There are also players who are comfortable with traditional mage heroes, but struggle with crucial picks like Mai. What do you do with players like this? What if they're reluctant to practice certain heroes, or they just can't seem to master them? In that case, you have to consider what the team's overall needs. If a player has a completely different playstyle and doesn't have the mindset or understanding needed for a specific role, then playstyle integration becomes very difficult. It's inevitable that the player will have strengths and weaknesses. Maybe they can perform at a 90% level on carry junglers, but only 70% on tank junglers. In such cases, you either need to prepare for a rotation substitution system or transfer the player and bring in someone whose playstyle fits the team better. Otherwise, it could cause ongoing issues with training and BP. That's the reality of hero pool expansion. If you're a new coach and want to help your team improve quickly, here's how I approach it. First things first, get to know your team. Spend time with them in daily BP training to get a feel for the lineup. Learn each player's hero pool and get a sense of the team's overall playstyle. Is it aggressive or more calm and steady? Once you've got that, evaluate the team's lineups. Look at how mature their current meta are and check players' fundamentals like mechanics and game sense. Next, figure out who the core player is. Build your lineups around them and focus on improving proficiency with the lineups your team already plays well. Reinforce those strengths and keep building on them. While doing that, don't forget to work on the basics: laning, jungle pathing, vision control in the river, and so on. Once you've got a handle on that, start scouting your opponents. Before matches, simulate BP scenarios, gather enemy data, and use it to run targeted scrims focused on your strongest lineups. In the end, the goal is to get your team to a point where they have a clear identity and their lineups allow all 5 players to shine. A team that can adapt to different opponents, execute different strategies, and has solid fundamentals. That's when you know your team is maturing and becoming truly competitive. These are some of my personal thoughts on BP strategy. Next, let's take a look at some discussions around the current patch. Let's take a look at the Invitational S3 finals, Nova versus Nongshim. The average game length just 15:31, and what stands out is the 100% usage of tank junglers across the board. In Game 1, Nova went with Wukong, one of their signature picks, and they built their entire lineup around it. The data shows a very aggressive style patch, with high skirmish frequency early to mid-game, and most matches closing out by mid-game. In the final, Nova picked Guan Yu, Aogran, Mai Shiranui, Diadia, and Arlie. Nongshim responded with Dolia, Lung, Mai Shiranui, Aogran, and Sunse. At 10 minutes, tank junglers and fighter side laners are extremely dominant. If they're ahead in gold, they've got enough power to close out games. That's why the Dark Tyrant at the 10-minute mark is extremely important. In dragon fights, if your tank junglers and fighter side laners are ahead in economy, they can decisively end the fight. There's a strong emphasis on mid-lane vision control, because in this tank junglers meta, junglers can help mid laners secure lane control. In terms of lineup structure, teams are building around strong, reliable heroes. For example, Diadia and Dolia control the top half of the map with those small jungle skirmishes, while the bot lane, with ADC and support, works together to apply lane pressure. Supports like Diadia and Dolia are particularly good at controlling vision around the river. In teamfight, the current trend emphasizes mid-lane control, fighting for mid-vision priority. Side laners and supports focus on finding flank positions in river areas. Of course, some heroes can still be unique strategic picks, like Nova's Wukong, which was a personal signature pick by the player. As for future meta trends, in my opinion, and based on how the Chinese server evolved, this tank junglers and fighter side laners ecosystem will likely continue for quite a while. The importance of BP will become greater and greater. A strong lineup will heavily influence the outcome, rather than relying 80–90% on individual mechanical skill. Even there's a clear gap in team strength. A weaker team with better BP can still be competitive and make the match close. When two teams are evenly matched, the one with the better BP will likely gain the upper hand. Additionally, this patch heavily emphasizes mid-lane and river vision control. We may start to see more lane swap tactics, especially because with the current tank junglers and fighter side laners meta, there are some very powerful solo laners like Byron and Sansi who are dominant in lane. But if farmline combo like Diadia and Ali face equally strong enemy combo or heroes, especially when the opponent's BP targets your lane can become a weakness. In those situations, lane swaps become a valuable tactic. It's a way to shift the balance, either to strengthen your own advantage or to punish the opponent's weaker side. Third, expect more emphasis on flanks and anti-flanks in river fights. There'll be more frequent fights in the mid lane. Both teams will likely mirror each other's moves around river control, and in the end, one well-timed flank could be the difference, turning a 5v5 into a 5v4 advantage. Now let's talk about some BP concepts under the current patch. First is hero understanding. I think there are several heroes in the current patch that don't really have natural counters. Take Mai Shiranui, for example. If the enemy doesn't have Haya, Jinchan, or Chang'e, she can completely dominate the mid lane. Those three are the only true counters. Other heroes like Yixing, Lady Zhen, or Xuan might try to challenge her, but they're not reliable counters. Mai Shiranui's high mobility, CC, and strong presence in teamfights make her a beast. She takes full control of mid, helps side lanes secure early resources, and excels in every phase, early, mid, and late. That's why she's arguably the most powerful and irreplaceable mid laner right now. Next up, we've got Arlie plus Diadia. Arlie has no real counters in the current HoK patch. The Geya Luban combo, a traditional counter, isn't present. Other potential counters like Direnjie, Chano, or Lady Sun aren't ideal. They're mostly scaling ADCs. Direnjie, in particular, struggles against strong side laners like Neja because he lacks mobility and can get caught out easily. Diadia pairs perfectly with Arlie, applying massive pressure in lane. Diadia excels in HoK due to the lack of strong Liang and Princess Frost lineups and the lack of the Master system. She has great sustain, high mobility, multi-phase control, and a strong AoE in teamfights. She can CC the enemy's core from a distance or dive in with teammates. When it comes to the jungle role, Orgren really stands out. As we saw in the Invitational Finals, both teams picked Orgren jungle without hesitation. He's a monster in early to mid skirmishes and in 2v2 mid lane fights. He can solo push mid lane, contest jungle, and invade with ease. Once he gets levels and gold, his scaling is top tier among tank junglers. Even though he's weak without items, his performance still makes him one of the best tank junglers out there. Dharma as a side laner isn't incredibly strong, but his team fight value is insane. His stats are a bit overtuned, and his engaging abilities are solid. Unlike Guan Yu or Sun Ce, who need setups and long flanks, Dharma can just walk out of a bush, flash in, and immediately threaten carries. His flank requirements are lower, which makes him more reliable in chaotic fights. That's why I consider him a top-tier teamfighter in this patch. Then, I want to talk about some potentially unstoppable heroes in future metas. First up, Byron in the Clash lane. In terms of landing, he can suppress almost every other fighter. He's pretty much unbeatable in lane. Even in lane swap strategies, Byron holds up really well under pressure. What makes him even more valuable is his synergy with support and mid laners in skirmishes, as well as his ability to invade the jungle. If the HoK region shifts toward more jungle-centric playstyles, Byron becomes a top-tier pick for the side lane. Another one is the support Ming. Ming combined with Lady Sun can form a powerful lane that effectively suppresses the Diadia plus Arlie combo. If Lady Sun's mechanics are on point, this combo can match the oppressive power of meta farm lanes. In the current HoK patch, Lady Sun is actually a strong ADC, but she's a bit limited by the presence of powerful fighter-side laners that make her positioning in teamfights tricky. But with Ming's support helping her farm and set up, they become a much stronger combo. A farmed Lady Sun can dish out insane damage. Ming also pairs really well with other heroes like Direnjie and Lung, helping them cover their weaknesses. For example, Ming can give Lung extra damage in the early game. He can also support mid and jungle carries, helping them scale better. I believe he's a potential breakout support pick in upcoming patches. Of course, there may be other strong heroes like Liang or the jungle Agudo. These are also OP candidates. You can discuss and reflect on what you think will rise next, what tactics will develop, and which heroes may slowly fade out of the meta. Even with basic hero evaluations, we can't forget about the importance of counters. These are based on role-to-role characteristics and stats, and they don't always last the whole game. Some are just for the laning phase, while others can influence the entire match. This is most obvious in mid and side lanes. Let's use mid lane as an example. We usually classify mages into assassin mages, canon mages, and utility mages, or we can classify them by range: assassins, long range, and short range. Assassin mages include Mai Shiranui, Princess Frost, and Xuan. Canon mages include Nuwa and utility mages include Liang, Shi, etc. The counter relationships between these mages generally follow by assassin mages counter artillery mages counter utility mages, and utility mages, to some extent, restrict assassin mages. However, in the current patch, utility mages are in a bit of an awkward spot. Their stats are undertuned, and their role isn't as clear, making it harder for them to effectively counter assassins. But assassin mages, like my Shiranui, still clearly dominate artillery mages, both when roaming and in team fights. Right now, all-rounded assassin mages, like my Shiranui, are the favored picks. So, how do these three styles interact logically and strategically in counters? That's something for you to consider as well. Next, let's talk about side lane counters. Among side laners, Byron can be considered at the top of the HoK ecosystem. He has favorable matchups against almost all other fighter side laners. His sustain, mobility, shield, and mechanics, combined with his well-rounded stats in both damage and tankiness, make him excellent in side lane, mid-game pushing, and even backline diving during team fights. That's why I previously mentioned he could be an upcoming unstoppable pick. Byron doesn't rely heavily on techniques, only some difficulty with A-Flash, or Skill 2 plus Flash. The key is how well players can leverage his laning skills to gain an advantage. Next, Alain is a great counter to Dharma. When Dharma uses his second skill to set up, Alain can land full damage with his first skill. His dashes also make it harder for Dharma to land the full combo with his second skill. Moreover, Alain's ultimate can dodge Dharma's wall combo. This is a counter based on skill interactions. Another example, Charlotte counters Main. When Main goes in with her combo, Charlotte can tank the burst damage with her tenacity and damage reduction, and then out-sustain Main. Main has no win condition in that exchange. These counter relationships become especially important when both players are even on golden experience. Even with simple plays, a counter pick like this can yield a big advantage, especially in mid-game lane pressure and map control. Now let's shift focus to the counter relationships in the other positions, starting with junglers and tank junglers. These matchups are more relative than absolute. For example, Menki counters Musashi, Dianwei counters Menki, and Agudo counters Algren. I've actually seen these counters come into play in the league, but due to factors such as player proficiency or teams not developing specific strategies, these counter relationships haven't been clearly reflected. In the marksman position, we can look at counters like Direnji counters Ali, Chano counters Ali, and Ali counters Lung. These counters have more to do with how marksmen match up in terms of damage output, mobility, and survivability during trades. For supports, things get interesting. For instance, Liang counters Dia, Zhang Fei, and Zhenren counter Liang, Mozi counters Ming, and Kaiyang counters Zhang Fei. This can be summarized as soft supports countering hard supports, because soft supports have the ability to kite and create space. This makes hard engages from the enemy less effective. On the other hand, hard supports counter functional supports that focus on strong engage, like Zhang Fei and Zhenren countering Liang. Hard supports have strong defensive capabilities, allowing them to interrupt or disperse the burst initiation of strong engage supports. Lastly, strong engage functional supports counter soft supports because they deny those soft supports the space they need to kite. These strong engage supports can quickly initiate or finish team fights, which makes them powerful in controlling fights. Now let's talk about off-role counters. This means a hero from one role counters a hero from a different role due to skill design or mechanics. In actual fights, The counter imposes great limitations on the other hero. For example, EDGM counters Xuan and Diadia, two top heroes in current patch. Lady Jen's CC and terrain manipulation greatly restrict Xuan, who lacks mobility and needs space to lifesteal. If she lands her CC, Xuan can't move or lifesteal effectively, and his ultimate often becomes ineffective. Diadia also suffers against Lady Jen because her bouncing skill can chain through grouped up enemies. One well-placed cast can apply CC across the whole fight, disrupting Diadia's timing and burst. Then there's Cao Cao counters Elite Cao Cao's short-range AoE burst. Multiple dashes and built-in cleanse allow him to survive Ali's poke and dive into her space. If Ali tries to go in first, Cao Cao can either kite her out or just go all in and win the trade. Their mobility is similar, but Cao Cao has better sustain and punish tools up close. And finally, Mayane counters Fade. This is more of a class-based off-roll counter, fighters into carry junglers. Even when Mayane isn't ahead, she can burst down fragile junglers like Fade with her combo before they can react. Fade doesn't really have the durability or tools to handle that kind of all-in unless he's massively ahead. This is what we call an off-roll counter. Then we have counter dynamics, because counters don't always stay the same in 2v2 or larger team fights. Things like sustainability, AoE control, CC, and target priority can shift the outcome significantly. In real games, synergy and interaction often override simple matchups. For instance, Don plus Lady Jen versus Mai Shiranui plus Xuan. In bot lane, Dahlia plus Lung versus Ali plus Zhangfei. Ali counters Lung, but Dahlia's poke and zoning can help Lung win trades and create pressure over multiple exchanges, swinging the lane. Inside jungle duos, Menki plus Mayane versus Guan Yu plus Xuan Menki lacks early game damage and has unreliable CC, so if Xuan's team focuses one target, they can burst down Menki and Mayane. Guan Yu also has strong follow-up and flanking pressure. One more point I want to emphasize when thinking about counters. They're not fixed, they're dynamic, and can shift based on level and item advantages, key ability usage and cooldowns, and hero power spikes and fall-off timings. I've had two memorable conversations with my players about this. First, Biren versus Alan. One of my players got solo killed on Biren. Afterward, he told me, against Alan, if you waste skill 2 as Biren, he'll chase you down and kill you. You have to use skill 2 to dodge Alain's skill 1. That's how you stay in control. This isn't just mechanics. It's a counter decision. Knowing when to hold your tools is what keeps a losing matchup playable. Second, Sunsi versus Byron. If Sunsi hits level 2 first, he can kill Byron instantly. That shows how critical early levels and skill timing are. Another example, Direnji versus Ali. On paper, Direnji is the counter, but if Ali rushes Doomsday and picks up red buff at 4 minutes, she can solo kill Direnji, even though she's the one supposedly at a disadvantage. That's because she hit her power spike, while Direnji didn't have the gear to match. The counter relationship flipped, just like that. Quiz time. Counter exists among different roles and combos. True or false? The answer is true. We can develop strategies based on different lineups because every lineup has its own game pace. What is unique about the lineup and what is its foundational pacing? Let me categorize them into the following types. Jungle invasion focus. Byron, Sakir. Heroes strong in early game, together with aggressive side laners and supports to relentlessly pressure enemy jungle areas. River control and gank. Emphasis. Heroes like Liang, Princess Frost, Diadia, Ali excel at side lanes. They easily capitalize on mid-lane numerical advantages to initiate team fights and decisively win the fight. Teamfight focus. Combo, like Jing plus Mai, specializes in hard engaging to keep threatening opponents' carry. Lane push focus, Zhangfei plus Direnge, KPL's Luban combo, focused on securing early lane advantages to keep crushing opponents' turrets. The first three hero picks typically lock in a team's core strategy. Subsequent selections should reinforce this foundation through complementary synergies or counter picks without deviating from the game pace. However, there's an advanced layer. Usually, the first three picks in your BP already lock in your lineup's play style. The remaining picks should follow the established pace, either reinforcing strengths or covering weaknesses. There's also bait picks, where you fake a weakness, force the opponent to counter, and pick heroes to counter their counters. That's where flex picks shine, like Xuan or Daqiao. You bait a counter, then pivot and counter them instead. That's the point of a bait pick. In competitive HoK lineup, understanding the dynamics between the red and blue sides is essential to making informed strategic decisions. Let's line up their strengths and weaknesses. Blue side advantages gets first ban, first pick, can secure top-tier heroes and systems. Tyrant lane and gold lane are favorable due to map layout. Easier to pressure bot tower. Blue side weaknesses. Easier to have lineups broken apart, e.g. pick Diadia and the enemy steals Ali. Vulnerable to red side counter picks. Loses map control on the overlord side. Red side advantages can see blue side's picks and counter them, can secure 2 full systems if the opponent doesn't contest. Stronger overlord side presence. Fourth pick has pick priority. Red side weaknesses. If trying to avoid enemy lineups and still deal with OP heroes, you'll run out of bans. Less favorable gold lane position, easier to be countered. That covers the basic trade-offs between red and blue side in the current meta. Now let's look at blue side BP strategy. What are the strengths of blue side right now? Currently, viable blue side picks include Dolia, Diadia, and lineup, built around these 2 popular and powerful heroes in HoK. Other strong hero options, Ali, Dun, Mai Shiranui, Gran, etc. Building a lineup around strong OP heroes is a valid approach. Now, let's break down the actual ban and pick logic for blue side. Blue side's first 2 bans, ban phase 1, serve several purposes. 1. Ban heroes that restrict your core system, e.g., if you want to play Diadia, you might ban Liang. 2. Ban heroes that counter your core OP picks, e.g., if you want to pick Ali, you might ban Lady Sun or Direnji. 3. Ban strong heroes you've already used, so the enemy can't pick them either. 4. Ban high win rate or high proficiency heroes from the opponent based on scouting intel. Ban phase 2, 3rd and 4th bans, serve as limiting bans. 1. Ban heroes that threaten the synergy of your first 3 picks. 2. Ban public pool heroes with high priority for red side's 4th pick. 3. Ban heroes your opponent plays well or has limited options for in their pool. First pick, pick 1 on blue side is critical, highlighted in red here. You have a few strategic options. 1. Pick a strong OP hero, e.g. Arli, Mai Shiranui, Gran, etc., and build your lineup around them. 2. Pick a core system hero such as Diadia or Dolia. 3. Pick a flexible all-rounded pick, a hero who's not weak and can act as a fake-out or bait, e.g. Princess Frost, Dun. These can confuse your opponent, preventing effective counter picks, and letting you strike back with your own counters. With a flexible pick, you can reverse the initiative, making red side unable to counter and instead forcing them to reveal more first. Pick 2 and pick 3 on blue side typically aim to reinforce your lineup. Pair up with your strong hero or counter enemy picks 1 and 2 using your flex picks information advantage. Pick 4 and pick 5 aim to 1. Strengthen your lineup, 2. Counter red side's 4th pick, or pick heroes that are good against the enemy's lineup. For example, picking a strong solo laner like Byron who doesn't fear being countered and fits your overall lineup. Let me give you a real example to illustrate how this plays out in an actual match. On April 12th, during the KPL match between Changsha TES and Jinan RW, TES started their draft by banning Mai Shiranui, a hero they had just used in a previous game. By following the logic of banning a strong pick they no longer want and denying it to the opponent, RW had been showing interest in Mengshi. TES was actually planning to first pick Mengshi themselves, but when RW banned her, TES had to adapt. Instead of revealing their core lineup too early, they opened with a flexible pick, Xuan. After RW picked Ogran and Dolia, TES responded with Luban Duo and locked Xuan in the mid lane. This countered Ogran effectively in mid-game team fights, giving TS a strong mid-presence. This example shows how a blue side first flex pick can serve both counter and anti-counter purposes. Alright, that wraps up our look at blue side's BP strategy. Now let's shift over to red side and break down what makes it tick. Typically, the red side leans on strong individual heroes like Ming, Lady Sun, Liang, and Princess Frost. You'll also often see them scoop up picks that blue side either skips or breaks apart, like Dolia, Lung, or Diadia, to deny synergy or flip the draft on its head. Now let's talk about how red side approaches ban and pick logic. First two bans on red side. 1. Ban the enemy's system heroes, e.g., ban Diadia, Dolia, if you don't want to deal with those lineups. 2. Ban strong heroes you've already used. 3. Give the opponent a lineup hero, but ban its core partners, e.g., let them take Diadia, but ban Ali, or ban Dolia, Lung, etc., to stop the lineup from forming. 4. Ban high win rate enemy heroes using scouting reports. Ban Phase 2, bans 3 and 4. 1. Limit the opponent's ability to complete their lineup or get strong heroes. 2. Target public pool threats to your own 4th pick. E.g., if you want to take Guan Yu on 4th pick, ban Mayeni to protect the pick. Picks 1 and 2 on red side usually follow 2 ideas. 1. Secure a strong full lineup. 2. Pick heroes that counter blue side's picks 1 and 2 directly. These picks are usually mid or side laners that can disrupt enemy lineups or carry the team. Pick 3 on red side is critical. It usually does one of 2 things. 1. Directly counter blue side's lineup, especially their first 3 picks, e.g. Ma Chao into Dolia, Lung, Guan Yu into Ming, Lady Sun. These disrupt enemy formation and suppress their core output. 2. Lineup lead your lineup, e.g. follow up Dolia plus Lung with done for a full setup. Pick 4 on red side has 2 main functions. 1. Secure public pool heroes before the enemy can. 2. Pick a flexible all-rounded hero to avoid counters and complete your lineup safely. Pick 5 on red side is the most important, the finishing touch. It should either 1. Counter the enemy's full lineup or target 1 key hero. 2. Complete and enhance your own lineup. Since this is the final pick of the entire BP, you have full information to choose the most appropriate and high-impact pick for your strategy. Let me give you a quick example to illustrate how red side can use that final pick to their advantage. In a match between Chengdu All Gamers and the Wolves, Wolves held on to their 10th pick and used it to lock in Sun Bin, rounding out a lineup that already included Byron and Mengshi. Sun Bin enhances poke and kite playstyles and heavily counters burst heroes like Lung or Kaiser, who need to fully commit to one-shot someone. Sun Bin's entry here was a perfect finishing pick, countering enemy threats while empowering his own team. Quiz time. Blue side's ban phase 2 have advantages at first ban and first pick. True or false? The answer is false. Its red side has this kind of advantages. Here is another quiz, which is not an all-rounded hero's function. A. Have more freedom of decision. B. Avoid opponent's counter. C. Build a lineup based on it. D. Trick your opponent to counter you. The right answer is C. Let's summarize at the macro level be principal swift talked about. First, no matchup dynamics across every lane. Learn what counters what. Remember, counters come hand with lane swaps. Counters are not absolute. He hangs with level itself and power spec timin. When building a lineup, follow your cham's strengths and player hero pools. Avoid strain toe far from your core identity. Keep your overall playstyle consistent. For example, don't be an aggressive early game lineup and infill its with late game sculling lanes. That's just the ineffective lineup. Always ensure you have lane control, tamfid pretense, and power specs in at last own phase early, mid, or late. Oharisha, you risk falling behind on all three lanes and getting overwhelmed be better sculling lineups. Blue shid the bees pertiza opirus and core lineups. Red shid the usuli aims 4 lane advantage. Later in the series, if hero pools and systems get exhausted, these roles may flip. Red side will chase strong lineups, and blue side will focus on lane matchups. Red side's 3rd and 5th picks are crucial for counter picks and adjustments. First 2 picks can set game pace and even turn the whole BP around. Lastly, learn to use all-rounded heroes to anti-counter or bait out counters. Today, we've gone over the essential elements of game understanding, from hero mechanics to team lineup, and the critical importance of the BP strategy in shaping the outcome of a match. Remember, theory is important, but what truly matters is applying these concepts in your games. It's one thing to understand the strategies and counters, but putting them into practice, adjusting on the fly, and learning from every match is where you'll grow as a player. Thank you all for your time and attention today. I look forward to seeing how you put these lessons into action in your future games.